For Warringah.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the member for Curtin for this matter of public importance. It's clear the recent economic reform roundtable that was held last month highlighted the growing issue of intergenerational inequality in our tax system. There was a little bit of an irony that came out so clearly, yet there was very little input or young people sitting around the table. It was certainly noted that the same usual representatives were there in relation to industry, unions and other interests. And so I would call on the government that if genuine intergenerational inequity is going to be addressed, there has to be a broader analysis and taking on board different perspectives. We also saw that there was no consideration of climate resilience, the biggest impact on future generations and biggest intergenerational inequity when we know the debt that will come from it and the cost. There was no focus during that productivity roundtable on climate risks or investing in resilience of the economy. The insurance sector wasn't even at the table. There's not even an addressing of how we were going to actually mitigate risks. What we do know, Australia's tax system is outdated. It no longer reflects realities of modern life. Young Australians are being asked to carry a disproportionate burden. They're locked out of home ownership due to inflated property markets and tax incentives that favour investors. Saddled with rising tertiary education costs and student debt, they're struggling to access capital and supports to start businesses and build their futures. They're taxed under a system that rewards asset accumulation over innovation and productivity. The very things that are essential to our well-being, housing and education, are the very things that are increasingly out of reach. These issues were raised in the Henry Tax Review some 15 years ago, and much of it remains unimplemented. And whilst there's a lot of talk from government ranks around all the investment in housing when it comes to supply, there's a complete deadly silence when it comes to really talking about the other demand levers and other pressures. What we do need is ambitious reform. We can't have a 21st century economy continuing to fund 19th century industries. We need to move away from taxing income and productivity, and we need to unshackle from legacy policies, industries and vested interests. We know what needs to be done. Earlier this year, I released the Re-energised Economy paper developed alongside economist Dr. Emma Esbett. It aims to lift productivity, repair the budget and address intergenerational inequity and the key drivers, especially around climate risk. To restore fairness and accessibility in housing, we have to talk about phasing out CGT discounts for multiple investment properties. We need to talk about reducing stamp duty to incentivise downsizing and greater mobility and better utilisation of current housing supply. We cannot just have a conversation of just increasing supply. We have to talk about limiting negative gearing tax breaks to rental properties that meet and ensure meeting minimum energy standards, encouraging greater energy efficiency, solar panels and batteries for rental properties, and making things like the affordable batteries programs available to stratas. Innovation. We have to empower young people to be ambitious and economic drivers, investing in STEM education and future skills, reducing barriers for young people to access start-up capital and flexible finance. We need to enhance opportunities for research and development investment. And we have to move away from taxing individuals to raise better revenue from key sectors like fossil fuels. We have to introduce a fossil fuel export levy aligned with the safeguard mechanism so we prevent that cost externalisation that's occurring. And we have to broaden the safeguard mechanism for an economy-wide reach because too many proponents and projects are simply not caught. And we have to strengthen the petroleum resource rent tax and urgently wind back the fuel tax excise rebate that overwhelmingly disincentivises the mining sector and the transport sector from decarbonising. If we're going to be serious about talking about tax reform and intergenerational inequity, we have to address these issues. We have to reward innovation, not extraction. We have to embrace technology responsibly and create opportunities for all. We have to address all those looming risks to productivity, and especially through climate risks. And yet, whilst the government talks a big game about wanting to do that, it continues to approve projects that will only make that worse. So I call on this new generation of members of parliament for the government to actually have ambition and drive change.